I accidentally got revenge, and it was beautiful. There are moments in life that completely blindside you. Mine came on a rainy Tuesday morning in Seattle when I found myself staring at my boss's email announcing my replacement. Not my termination, my replacement. I hadn't even been fired yet. We're excited to welcome Trevor Andrews, who will be taking over Jake's position starting next month. Please join us in welcoming him to the team. I read it 3 times, my coffee growing cold beside my keyboard. My name is Jake Sullivan, and apparently, I was being phased out of existence without even being informed first. I had given 5 years of my life to Walker and Reed marketing. 5 years of overtime, canceled vacations, and team player moments where I covered for my boss, Martin Keller, when he was too hungover to make client meetings. In return, I got a mistakenly forwarded email announcing my professional funeral. The worst part? Everyone received it. My phone immediately lit up with texts from coworkers. Dude, what the hell? Did you know about this? Are you okay? Call me. I wasn't okay. I sat frozen, watching more concerned messages flood in while Martin, that spineless, credit-stealing parasite, was nowhere to be found. Probably hiding in his office, rehearsing how to fire me now that his perfect plan was ruined. But I didn't storm into his office. I didn't make a scene. Instead, I did something so uncharacteristic that my friends still don't believe it. I smiled, took a deep breath, and began meticulously organizing my desk. See, I'm not a confrontational guy. I'm the type who apologizes when someone else bumps into me. The kind who quietly picks up slack without recognition. Martin knew this, which is why he never saw what was coming. Jake, got a minute? Martin's voice broke through my deliberate filing 2 hours later. His tone was casual, as if that email hadn't just nuked my professional life. Sure thing, I replied with a calm that surprised even me. His office was all glass and modern furniture, a testament to his inflated sense of importance. He gestured to a chair while nervously fiddling with his Apple Watch. So, I wanted to talk to you about some organizational changes, he began, not quite meeting my eyes. You mean about Trevor taking my position? I asked pleasantly. Martin's face cycled through several emotions before settling on forced sympathy. Ah, yes, I was planning to discuss this with you first, but there was a communication error. A communication error, I repeated. Not, I messed up or I'm sorry. Classic Martin. The company is moving in a new direction, and we need someone with a particular skill set, he continued, gaining confidence as he delivered what was clearly a rehearsed speech. Trevor's skill set, I nodded. Exactly, but we value your contributions, which is why we're offering you a position in our data entry department. Less pressure, more stability. He slid a folder across his desk. Translation. A demotion with a 40% pay cut, buried in the basement with the servers. The severance package on the second page was insultingly small, clearly designed to make me choose the demotion so they wouldn't have to pay it. I appreciate the opportunity, I said, taking the folder. Can I have the day to think about it? Martin looked relieved. Of course. Take your time. Well, by Friday, preferably. As I left his office, I noticed Diane from HR watching anxiously. I gave her a reassuring smile too. No scenes today. Not from Jake Sullivan. Back at my desk, I opened my laptop and began what would become the most productive afternoon of my career. First, I completed all my pending projects, not just completed but polished to perfection. Every report, proposal, and analysis I'd been working on was finished with meticulous care. Then, I organized my digital files into a comprehensively labeled system that even a child could navigate. 5 years of work categorized and annotated. Finally, I wrote detailed transition documents explaining every client relationship, every ongoing campaign, and every unspoken rule that made our department function. By 6:30 p.m., I was the last one in the office. Martin had left early for meetings, happy hour, clearly relieved I hadn't made his day difficult. Little did he know I was creating something beautiful in his absence. I submitted everything via email, CCing the entire team and relevant clients, for transparency. My message was professional and helpful, to ensure a smooth transition for Trevor and our clients. Then I packed my personal items into a single box, placed my resignation letter on Martin's desk, effective immediately, forfeiting the insulting severance, and walked out without looking back. As I drove home through Seattle's perpetual drizzle, a strange sensation washed over me. For the first time in years, I felt light, like I'd shed a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying. The radio played some upbeat pop song about freedom, and I actually cranked up the volume, drumming my fingers on the steering wheel. My phone buzzed incessantly, colleagues wondering where I'd gone, what had happened, if I was okay. I silenced it and kept driving. They'd find out soon enough. My apartment felt different when I walked in, either smaller or larger, I couldn't decide which. I put my sad little box of office mementos on the kitchen counter and opened a beer. Then another. By midnight, I drafted and deleted 17 different social media posts, ranging from professional announcements to scorched earth manifestos. In the end, I posted nothing. Sometimes silence speaks volumes. I finally checked my messages around 1 a.m. 37 texts, 14 voicemails, and 23 emails. Most expressed shock or sympathy. A few offered job leads. One, from my friend Carter in accounting, simply read, "Martin doesn't know what's coming, does he?" I smiled into the darkness of my apartment. No, Martin had no idea. 3 days passed in a blur of Netflix, takeout, and sporadic job applications. I was neither motivated nor desperate. 5 years of compulsive saving meant I had a decent emergency fund. 5 years of missed social events meant I had plenty of shows to catch up on. On day 4, the texts started coming in again, but with a different tone. "Holy shit. Have you seen what's happening? Martin is freaking out. Call me ASAP." Emails from clients appeared in my personal inbox. "Jake, we've appreciated your work, and we're shocked to hear of your departure. Can we discuss your availability as an independent consultant?" And most surprisingly, a voicemail from Diane in HR. "Jake, please call me back. This is not about returning company property." I made coffee before returning any messages. Diane answered on the first ring. "Jake, I probably shouldn't be calling you, but things have gone completely sideways here," she whispered. "Martin is in serious trouble." "What happened?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Your transition documents. They're comprehensive." Too comprehensive. I hadn't included anything false or confidential, just the unvarnished truth, meticulously documented. Like how Martin had been inflating billable hours to clients while crediting himself for work done by junior team members, including me. Or the detailed breakdown of how our department's impressive performance metrics were actually achieved, not through Martin's visionary leadership, as he claimed in meetings, but despite his frequent absences and missed deadlines. Or the systematic pattern of him taking credit for successful campaigns while deflecting blame for failures. All laid out factually, with supporting documentation and helpful cross-references. No accusations, just data, the kind that's hard to dismiss as a disgruntled employee's revenge. "The Oversight Committee has called an emergency meeting," Diane continued. "3 major clients have requested their accounts be transferred to different managers after reviewing your notes. They're asking questions about billing discrepancies." I sipped my coffee. "That sounds challenging. Jake, did you plan this?" "Plan what?" "I just ensured a smooth transition, like any professional would," I replied honestly. "Everything in those documents is accurate." The silence on her end spoke volumes. "Trevor declined the position this morning," she finally said. "Said he wasn't comfortable with the ethical implications after reviewing your files." I couldn't help but smile. Trevor sounded like a decent guy. That afternoon, I finally ventured outside my apartment. The Seattle air felt crisp. The coffee from my favorite local shop tasted better than usual, and the weight of Walker and Reed seemed to diminish with each step I took. My phone rang as I was contemplating whether to splurge on lunch at that overpriced bistro I'd always walked past but never entered. "Is this Jake Sullivan?" The voice was authoritative, unfamiliar. "Speaking. This is Frank Chun." My step faltered. Frank Chun was the founder and CEO of Walker and Reed, a semi-mythical figure who appeared in the office maybe twice a year, usually preceding layoffs or major restructuring. "Mr. Chun," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. What can I do for you? You can meet me for lunch. 1 hour. Canlis Restaurant. He named one of the most expensive restaurants in Seattle. We need to talk. He hung up before I could respond. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, wondering if this was some elaborate setup for public humiliation. But curiosity won out over caution. I went home, changed into my one decent suit, and caught a rideshare to Canlis. Frank Chun was already seated when I arrived, nursing what looked like a very old scotch. In person, he was more imposing than his company headshot suggested, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, with the unmistakable confidence of someone who had built something substantial. Sullivan, he acknowledged, gesturing to the chair across from him. I sat down, determined not to speak first. The power move of the perpetually underestimated. A waiter appeared with water and menus. Frank waved the menus away. We'll have the chef's selection. And bring Mr. Sullivan whatever he wants to drink. Just water is fine, I said. Frank raised an eyebrow. Staying sharp. Good. Once the waiter left, Frank leaned forward. I've known Martin Keller for 15 years. Hired him myself. Never suspected a thing. I nodded but said nothing. The auditors are still going through everything, he continued. It's worse than we initially thought. Martin had been terminated the day after my departure. The communication error with the email turned out to be the least of his problems. I appreciate you not taking this to social media or the press, Frank added. Most people would have burned everything down. I shrugged. That wouldn't have helped anyone. No, it wouldn't have. He studied me with newfound respect. That's why I want you back. I nearly choked on my water. Excuse me? He slid a folder across the table, eerily similar to the one Martin had given me, but considerably thicker. This is our offer. We'd like you to return as department director. Complete autonomy, doubled salary, and a significant ownership stake. I raised my eyebrows. That's generous. It's preventative, Frank replied bluntly. You know where all the bodies are buried, Jake. I'd rather have you inside the tent. I laughed. I'm not a threat, Frank. No? You systematically destroyed a man's career without ever making an accusation or losing your temper. You turned documentation into a weapon of mass destruction. He leaned forward. That's exactly the kind of strategic thinking we need. I took the folder but didn't open it. I'll need time to consider. Of course. Frank nodded. But don't take too long. Your little documentation project has caught the attention of several of our competitors. 3 have already reached out to me asking for references. Our first course arrived, something delicate and artful involving scallops. I took a bite, savoring both the flavor and the surreal turn my life had taken in just a few days. There's one more thing you should know, Frank said as he expertly wielded his fork. Martin's been telling people you sabotaged him. I almost laughed. With what? The truth. Precisely the problem. Frank's smile was wolfish. He can't point to a single falsehood in your documentation. Just that it was selectively thorough. I documented what I observed, I replied. That's not sabotage. No, that's brilliance. Frank raised his glass. So what do you say? Ready to come back and show the rest of them how it's done? I didn't answer immediately. For years, I'd been the quiet guy who never made waves. The reliable one who was paradoxically overlooked because of his reliability. Now, suddenly, I was being courted not despite those qualities, but because of them. I'll consider it, I finally said. But I make no promises. Frank nodded, seemingly satisfied. Fair enough. The offer stands for 2 weeks. As we finished our extravagant lunch, I realized something profound had shifted. I hadn't planned revenge. I'd simply done what I always do, thorough, detailed work. The difference was that, for once, I'd done it for myself rather than someone else. That evening, I sat on my balcony watching the Seattle skyline, the folder from Frank still unopened beside me. My phone buzzed with a LinkedIn message from Trevor Andrews. Hey Jake, we haven't met, but I wanted to reach out. I declined the position at W&R after seeing what happened. Your documentation was eye-opening. I'm starting my own agency focused on ethical marketing practices. Would you be interested in talking? I smiled and typed a reply. I'd love to hear more. My phone immediately rang. Sophia, my closest friend from college and brutal truth-teller. You're famous, she announced without preamble. What are you talking about? There's a thread on Reddit about you. Well, not you specifically, but what happened. Someone from your company posted about how their colleague murdered their boss with nothing but documentation and kindness. It's gone viral. I nearly spilled my drink. You're kidding. Nope. It's been picked up by those workplace drama YouTube channels. They're calling it malicious compliance at its finest. You're an anonymous legend, my friend. I laughed until my sides hurt. All those years of being overlooked, and now I was famous for being thorough. So what's next? Sophia asked when I finally caught my breath. Are you taking Frank's offer? I looked at the closed folder, then at Trevor's message, then at 3 other emails from competing agencies who had somehow gotten wind of my availability. I don't know yet, I admitted, but for the first time, I feel like I have actual choices. The next morning, I awoke to an email from Diane with the subject line, "You might want to see this." She had forwarded an internal company email, the kind of communication I was no longer supposed to receive. It was from Martin Keller. To all staff, as many of you know, I have been let go from Walker and Reed under false pretenses. This was orchestrated by a disgruntled former employee who manipulated information to make me look bad. I have always operated with the company's best interests at heart, and I will be pursuing legal action against both the company and Jake Sullivan for defamation and wrongful termination. Those who know me understand my character and dedication. I ask for your support during this difficult time. Martin Keller. I stared at the screen, caught between disbelief and a strange sort of admiration for his audacity. Martin was going down swinging. Diane had added her own note. Legal is having a field day with this. Just FYI, he doesn't have a case. Everything you documented is backed by company records. Frank is furious. Thought you should know. I responded with a simple thank you and made myself some coffee. As I sipped it, I wondered what I would have done in Martin's position. Probably apologized, made amends, tried to salvage my reputation. But then again, if I were Martin, I wouldn't have been in this position to begin with. Later that day, I met Trevor Andrews at a small cafe downtown. He looked younger than I expected, early 30s, with an earnest expression and a firm handshake. Thanks for meeting me, he said as we settled with our drinks. This is weird, I know. I laughed. Which part? The fact that you were hired to replace me, or that you're now trying to recruit me? Both. He grinned. Look, I didn't know what I was walking into. They told me the position was opening up because the current manager wanted to explore other opportunities. Standard corporate BS. And then you saw my transition documents. I finished for him. Yes. His expression grew serious. At first, I thought it was just incredibly detailed onboarding materials. Then I started noticing patterns, discrepancies, things that didn't add up. Like what? Like how Martin took credit for the Westland campaign, but all the strategy documents were authored by you. Or how client billing hours magically increased when Martin took over accounts, without corresponding deliverables. Trevor shook his head. I've worked in 6 agencies, and I know creative accounting when I see it. I sipped my coffee. So you walked away from a 6-figure job on principle? Wouldn't you? His response was immediate, without calculation. I studied him for a moment. I did, actually. Trevor nodded. That's why I reached out. I'm starting something new. Something ethical. No inflated billables, no credit stealing, no bullshit. I need people who value integrity over ego. And you thought of me because anyone who can document 5 years of corporate malfeasance without ever crossing into accusation or exaggeration has exactly the kind of precision and integrity I need. He leaned forward. Plus, you clearly know how to build systems that speak for themselves. I couldn't help but laugh. You're offering me a job based on how thoroughly I got my boss fired? I'm offering you a partnership based on how thoroughly you documented the truth, he corrected. There's a difference. That night, I spread 3 offers on my kitchen table. Frank Chen's generous package to return to Walker and Reed as a department director. Trevor's proposal to join his ethical marketing startup as a founding partner. An offer from Latitude, Walker and Reed's biggest competitor, to join their team at a substantial salary bump. All because I'd done what came naturally to me. Documented everything meticulously. It seemed almost comical how my most overlooked skill had suddenly become my most valuable asset. My phone buzzed with a text from Carter in accounting. Martin's cleaning out his office. Security is watching him like a hawk. Apparently he tried to delete a bunch of files this morning. Too late. IT already locked everything down after your documentation raised red flags. I texted back, "Is everyone okay there?" Weirdly, yes. Frank called an all-hands and was surprisingly transparent. Said the company was recommitting to ethical practices and accountability. People are shocked but relieved. Martin wasn't just screwing you over. Turns out half the department was getting shortchanged on credit and bonuses. That was interesting. I hadn't known about others being affected, though in retrospect it made sense. Martin's behavior wouldn't have been isolated to just me. Another text came through. This one from an unknown number. "This is Martin. We need to talk. This has gone too far." I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it without replying. There was nothing to discuss. The documentation spoke for itself. Instead, I opened my laptop and began making a detailed comparison chart of my 3 offers, weighing the pros and cons of each with the same thoroughness I'd applied to my exit documentation. Old habits die hard. 1 week later, I walked into a sunlit office space in downtown Seattle, carrying a small box of personal items, much like the one I'd taken from Walker and Reed, but somehow lighter. Trevor was already there, arranging furniture in what would become our shared workspace. "Welcome to day 1 of Clarity Partners," he greeted me, gesturing around the modest but promising space. I had ultimately chosen Trevor's offer, not because it was the most lucrative, it wasn't, but because it offered something the others couldn't. A chance to build something from scratch, with transparency and ethics as foundational principles. "Are you sure you want me as your first hire?" I asked, setting down my box. "My claim to fame is accidentally destroying someone's career." Trevor laughed. "Your claim to fame is integrity so powerful it speaks for itself. That's exactly what I want our agency to represent." As we set up our workstations, my phone buzzed with a news alert. I clicked on it, then nearly dropped the phone. "What is it?" Trevor asked, noticing my expression. I turned the screen toward him. The headline read, "Marketing Executive Faces Criminal Charges for Fraud and Embezzlement." The article detailed how Martin Keller was being investigated for systematic billing fraud across multiple client accounts at Walker and Reed. The company was cooperating fully with authorities and had self-reported the issues after an internal audit triggered by detailed documentation from a departing employee. "Holy shit," Trevor whispered. "Did you know it went this far?" I shook my head, genuinely shocked. "I just documented what I saw. I had no idea it was criminal." "Well," Trevor said after a pause, "I guess your thoroughness saved the company from potential liability too. Frank Chun should be sending you thank you baskets." As if on cue, my phone rang. Frank Chen's name flashed on the screen. "Aren't you going to answer it?" Trevor asked. I hesitated, then declined the call. "They'll figure it out. They have all the documentation they need." Trevor grinned. "That's the spirit. Now, ready to build something better." I looked around the empty office, a blank canvas waiting for our vision, and nodded. "Absolutely. Let's document everything properly from day 1. 3 months into building Clarity Partners, we landed our first major client. Ironically, one of Walker and Reed's former accounts that had jumped ship after the Martin Keller scandal broke. "We chose you because we trust your approach to documentation and transparency," their CMO told me during our kickoff meeting. "After what happened with Martin, we need partners we can trust implicitly." Word spread quickly in Seattle's tight-knit marketing community. Our reputation for meticulous record-keeping and transparent billing became our biggest selling point. By month 6, we had 5 major clients and had hired 3 additional team members. Martin Keller's criminal case was proceeding slowly through the justice system. According to industry gossip, he'd taken a plea deal that included restitution to clients and the company. His LinkedIn profile now listed him as a freelance marketing consultant, the digital equivalent of unemployment in our industry. Frank Chun called me occasionally, each time with a more generous offer to return. I always declined politely, but we maintained a cordial relationship. Several of my former colleagues had reached out as well, some seeking jobs at Clarity, others just wanting to reconnect with the person who had inadvertently exposed the rot at the core of their workplace. My mother still didn't understand what had happened. "So you just did your job really well and that got him fired?" she asked over Sunday dinner. "Essentially," I confirmed. She shook her head. "I always told you thoroughness would pay off someday." She wasn't wrong. But what she didn't understand, what I was only beginning to understand myself, was that my real victory wasn't getting Martin fired or launching a successful business. It was finding my voice in silence, power in thoroughness, and realizing that sometimes the most devastating response to disrespect isn't an outburst, but excellence documented so meticulously that it cannot be denied. 1 year to the day after that fateful email announcing my replacement, I received a package at our now thriving office. Inside was a framed Reddit post, printed, matted, and professionally framed, with the title, "My coworker murdered our boss with nothing but documentation and kindness." The anonymous post detailed my story from a colleague's perspective, with over 50,000 upvotes and thousands of comments praising the documentation hero. Someone, I suspected Sophia, had added a small gold plaque at the bottom that read, "The ultimate professional revenge story of 2024, and below that a quote, "The best revenge is not just living well, but documenting thoroughly." I hung it in my private office bathroom where only I could see it, a daily reminder that I never set out for revenge. I simply decided to stop being invisible. Trevor popped his head into my office later that afternoon. "Ready for the Johnson pitch? They're a big fish." I nodded, gathering my meticulously prepared presentation materials. "Born ready. They won't know what hit them." "Your thoroughness?" Trevor grinned. "Exactly," I replied, returning his smile. "It's accidentally devastating." As we walked into the conference room to meet our potential new clients, I couldn't help but think about how completely my life had transformed in just 1 year. From overlooked employee to respected business partner. From someone who apologized when others bumped into him to someone whose work spoke volumes without saying a word. All because I had accidentally gotten revenge by simply being myself at full volume. And it was indeed beautiful. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more incredible content.